Welcome, everyone, to our Blunt Brunch Connect virtual table. Whether this is your first time joining us or you've been a part of our growing community, we're always grateful for you to take time out of your day and be a part of these conversations. These virtual tables really exist because of each and every one of you. Quickly, we want to give a shout out to all of our sponsors who continue to help make Blunt Brunch be able to host events like this or our in-person events. We have our annual sponsors, Curaleaf, MJ BizCon, Pomponio Injury Law, and Hephaestus. They are our annual sponsors, which you'll see them marketed through all of our events, both virtual and in person. And to our annual partners, we want to also thank IMA Financial Group, Align Prints, Canasite, and Event High. And just to kind of give you a flow of how this works, we're going to start with our blunt conversation. We'll introduce you to both of our special guests for today. Then we will do a virtual group photo. And then if we have time, we will go out into our breakout rooms with it, which is about 3 to 4 people in a room. You guys get to network quickly, kind of have a call to action. If there's something you need help with, you need an introduction. And then our community updates and announcements. So we will get this going. Let me make sure I got everybody in the room. Yes, okay. So today's conversation is titled Paid, Valued, and Unapologetic. So money is one of the conversations that we most avoid, yet it directly shapes our power, our sustainability, and our ability to lead long term. Too often, women find themselves underpricing their work, over delivering their time, or hesitating to advocate for themselves because they fear of being labeled too difficult, demanding, or too much. So today's conversation, we're really trying to change that narrative. We want to open the door to a more honest conversation about compensation, confidence, and strategy. We'll talk about how women can move from simply being visible in the room to being truly valued for the impact they bring. So with that being said, let's get this conversation started. First, we are going to there we go. We are going to introduce Jessica Velazquez, CPA and CFE. Jessica is the principal and cannabis practice leader at BeachFleischman LLC, Arizona's largest locally owned public accounting firm and one of the top 200 CPA firms in the United States. She is a seasoned certified public accountant with more than 20 years of tax and accounting experience. Jessica's career includes roles at Big Four firms, Price Waterhouse, Coppers and Ernst, or sorry, Jessica, do you want to clear that up for me? I think it's Price Waterhouse,
Coopers?
Coppers. Go ahead.
Yeah, PricewaterhouseCoopers and Ernst& Young.
There we go. As well as corporate tax leadership in the highly regulated gaming industry, with companies including SHFL Entertainment and the Cosmopolitan of Los Angeles. In 2016, she founded Indiva Advisors LLP, one of the first CPA firms dedicated to serving the cannabis industry, which then was acquired by BeachFleischman in November of 2024. Jessica holds a Master of Science in Taxation from DePaul University and a Bachelor of Science in Accounting from Southern Illinois University. She is a CPA in Nevada and Illinois and a certified fraud examiner. She's also an active leader in her profession and community, serving as the advisory board for the Association of Latino Professionals for America, Las Vegas chapter, and a treasurer for the National Press Photographers Association. So with that being said, welcome Jessica Velazquez, and please take a moment to say hello, share a little bit more, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, hi everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Huge thank you, first of all, to Adelia and Parisa for creating this space and creating Blunt Brunch for all of us. I'm also really excited to share this stage today with Rachel, another fellow CPA here in the industry. As I was preparing for this panel, I kind of thought to myself that this topic is just so timely, as we're celebrating Women's History Month. In business and in life, there's something about confidence and really making sure you're showing up to the places that we belong with that confidence, because it signals leadership, authority, self-worth, amongst many other things. So I'm super happy to be here and happy to dive into this conversation.
Thank you again. And we look forward to asking you some questions very shortly. But next up, we are going to introduce Rachel. All right. So it is also an honor to introduce Rachel Wright, MST CPA. Rachel is a hands-on business leader, strategic thinker, and trusted financial partner with more than a decade of experience in the cannabis industry. And another 10 years prior in actually real estate development and manufacturing. She founded Verdant Strategies in 2024, building on the legacy of 420 CPA and AB Finwright LLP, which she actually co-founded in 2020. Her work focuses on helping operators build stronger and more resilient businesses in an industry where regulations and financial structures are constantly evolving. She advises companies on tax strategy, compliance, mergers and acquisitions, and internal financial systems, and has also supported operators through litigation support and expert witness testimony when financial transparency is critical. She has served on the board of a public cannabis company in Canada, including as an audit committee chair, bringing financial governance during a key stage of expansion. Her expertise has been featured in Bloomberg Tax, MJ Biz Daily, Cannabis Industry Journal, Marijuana Venture, and LA Daily Journal. And she has spoken at quite a few events such as Benzinga, INCBA, Ignite It, CMB, and the Cannabis Quality Conference. She also holds a master's in taxation and a graduate degree in international taxation from Golden Gate University and is a licensed certified public accountant. So everyone, please join me in welcoming Rachel Wright.
Thank you so much. And I love Blunt Brunch, and I love the fact that we're all in this room together. I see so many faces of people that I know, and what a great community. And, I just want to say thank you also to Jessica. We got to chat a little bit beforehand. We don't get to talk very much, but we had a few minutes today. So I'm hoping to have, a lot of feedback from people in the audience. Like, what do you want to hear about? How do things impact you, so we can, even more address, some of the reasons why you came today, and see how Jessica, Adelia, and I can help you, so that's what we're here for. We're here for a community. So with that, let's rock and roll.
Oops, I'm muted. There we go. Okay, now I'm muted. Not get us back on screen. And so we're going to begin the blunt conversations. We do have a couple questions, but feel free, as Rachel was saying, put questions in the chat. We want to make this engaging for us all. And we also will have a moment in pausing in between the questions to, again, have anybody in the audience be able to ask specific questions. So with that being said, first things first, we'll go over to Jessica. Jessica, many women entrepreneurs struggle with understanding their true financial position. What are two financial metrics or habits every founder should understand if they want to confidently negotiate compensation or investor conversations?
Yeah, that great question, really to kick us off. I would say that most often folks and women entrepreneurs focus on revenue when they're talking about their business. How do I grow my revenue? But I would say probably two of the key metrics that are just so important to the lifeline of any successful business. One, cash flow. So revenue is important, but what is cash flow? Do you understand, your monthly burn rate? Do you understand, what your break-even costs are? And do you know further, like when the cash is actually going to hit the bank, right? So we forecast revenue, till it's dark in the day, but we don't really focus on that cash flow. And cash flow is the lifeline of any business. So I would say that's definitely an area that I love founders to focus on. And then, specifically in cannabis, where we're selling products most often to our customers, it's really understanding the cost of every unit produced, right? We hear this all the time, right? What's the cost of what you're producing? But so often, just entrepreneurs don't know this number. They don't know it off the top of their head. They're not comfortable talking about it. And if they know it, they don't understand the inputs. They know it because maybe their CPA told them what it was, but they don't understand what's really driving it. And if you're in a service industry, that applies to you too. There's a cost to providing your service, just like, Rachel and I in our CPA firms. There's a cost to that. So it's really understanding what it costs you to produce, what it costs you to add one more client, what it costs you to, add, another expansion to your business. So those are, I would say, some of the two key metrics that founders should be focused on.
Just you explain saying that, it does remind me how there were times where I was uncomfortable, and not knowing and just trying to figure it out, or especially being a service-based business before, not knowing the value and trying to analyze like, well, how much time goes into doing this and how do I price that? So I think again, it also is a reminder that we all don't necessarily know those, again, don't know those answers, but we can learn and ask our peers, get advice. If somebody's in a similar field, there's good competition, but there's also collaboration within that, and we can learn from each other. So appreciate that advice.
I would add, maybe just to kind of close this one, the confidence comes from really understanding your business and not just reviewing financial statements.
Mm.
It's really understanding the numbers.
So next up, we're going to go over back to Rachel. Many founders focus heavily on revenue, but not always on financial structure. What does a financially healthy cannabis company actually look like behind the scenes?
Yeah, so I'd go back to like even your foundation. What are you selling? What are you doing? What I often find, especially, addressing some of our crowd right now, is a lot of us are service providers as well, as Jessica mentioned. What I find is focus, right? We have to focus. Um, Oftentimes when I talk to people, entrepreneurs, startups, they have so many different things that they want to do. And I think you need to start with the one primary service or product that you're good at, that you can provide. And then once you conquer that and you have a foundation for that particular business, then you can look at other things that you want to do. So, and I know we all love to volunteer. We all have a heart to volunteer. I think that that's great too. But if we can't feed ourselves, we can't volunteer. So, I want to make sure that I can feed myself, feed my company, feed my family first. And then, we can volunteer with some time that we have. But, I know we have a heart to serve, but we also have to make sure that we can put the food on our own tables as well. So what I find is that people just get they just have so much going on, so many different directions that they want to go. And so therefore nothing becomes profitable. So focus on first things first. And I think the rest comes.
As you're saying that, I remember when I first started my first company in the industry, and you're right. You want to volunteer, you want to help, you want to say yes to everything because you think all of this is going to be good for the business and great to get the name out there. But you're right. Then you're like, I'm not making any money. I can't do anything. I can't help myself. Like, I remember I was like doing side gigs and cleaning Airbnbs just to maintain a business. And I'm like, I can't live like this. So
Yeah.
that's so true. Jessica. So, with that, going back into, in regulated industries like cannabis, gaming, compliance, tax structure, it can dramatically impact profitability. What is one strategic financial decision early operators often overlook that can affect their long-term valuation?
Yeah. I would say really even just starting with understanding what's the end goal. So everyone's really excited to start the business, and there's so much energy right on the front end, but no one's really thinking about what the end looks like and how to get there. And so I think, Rachel, you kind of hit it on the head. There's a lot of shiny objects that are coming your way throughout your journey. And so if you don't really have a plan as to what the end looks like, it's hard to know what shiny objects you got to avoid or which ones are opportunistic to you, right? And so I do think it's understanding what is the end strategy. Um, I think I know a lot of folks here on this call. You might remember me from my Indiva Advisors days when I started the practice. There was an end in mind, and here I am. This was the goal. And so I think again, those decisions that I made along the way were relative to what my exit or what the end plan was going to be. So I would say that that's, just key, understanding, what the end looks like. And then if I could add just a more practical, tidbit here, I think in terms of compliance and tax and all of the things that we know as expense line items, right? We're all familiar with that. There's a cost associated with compliance, with advisors and all of those things. I find that a lot of people will know or forecast for those initial costs, but they don't forecast for what those costs are going forward. This industry is heavily regulated. It's changing, as we all have seen over the last couple of years, and will continue to, I think, experience. It changes on us, and so those changes cost money. There's more compliance in that. There's more advisors that you might need to add to those changes. And more often than not, just I don't see that. I don't see it as you think about what your journey and what the next step is going to be. So I think forecasting those kind of costs will really help you understand your pricing. I mean, that was again one of the key things on this topic that I really love is what is your value? You understand your value when you know your costs, when you know what you're trying to obtain from a profitability perspective. So you're stepping into the room with, hey, this is what my service costs. This is what the product costs, because you're growing a company for the long run or whatever is your exit.
Yeah, and I want to add to that. I can always tell businesses that are actually going to be successful because they're willing to invest in those advisors. They're thinking long term, and they realize that their investment in that. And I'm not just trying to sell mine or Jessica's services, or these are all of us on the call. We should all feel very good about what we do and the value that we bring to the table. And I can tell when somebody comes to me and says, "Well, how much is that? And can I get a discount?" And I say, no, there are, we price as best we can for the industry, and based on value, but no, we know our worth, right? And we know that if you hire the right people, you surround yourself with the right team, and you're building the right foundation, that you're going to eventually get to your goals. So do you want to get to your goals, or do you want to be pound wise and penny foolish? So that's how I would approach it. And the ladies here that are selling your services, which is, you're selling yourself. We're all selling ourselves and our services, which is our time, our most valuable asset that we have. And, it's got to be worth it. And what I look at is what kind of value do people get at the end of the day from the services that we're providing? And I always love it when somebody says, well, how long did that take you? Well, that's not your business how long it took me. How long did it actually take me, right? And I'm saying this to all the women that are on the phone that, how many years did you go to school? How many years did you spend in the industry? How many years did you spend cultivating these relationships? So what are we worth at the end of the day? It's not, if it took me an hour, oh, well, well, it took me years to be able to do this in an hour. So, just be unapologetic about what your worth is. Obviously we need to be realistic at the same time. I can't charge like $10,000 an hour. Maybe I can't. I don't know, maybe I could. So, but maybe it's not hours. Maybe it's value. So look at how you're charging too.
So Rachel, I've gotten that question before. How long did it take you? I'm like, it took me 2 degrees, a CFP exam, and 20 plus years. That's how
Yeah.
long it took me to get this
Right.
answer. That saved you thousands of
Love
dollars.
that. Totally.
Well, as we're talking about that, Kathleen actually left a pretty good question that I think can kind of continue that on. She asks, can we address how to handle when you pay someone and they do not follow through? So on the other side of it, let's say a financial consultant or etc. She was saying as a CEO, she's made mistakes, trusted some good businesses with a good reputation, but they don't ultimately deliver, and you're left without the work and financials gone. So what is some good advice that somebody should do?
Um, there's some homework on the front end, I think that we're all responsible for, right? Due diligence is so important. Again, for those of us that have had, many years in the industry, and certainly even for new folks too, we have to know who we're working with and who's on the other side. So due diligence really on the front end is key. But once you're engaged, I think communication's important and just setting expectations right on the front. So that's something I love doing with the clients. That way it's clear. What's your responsibility? What's my responsibility? What's the expectation of the engagement?
Mhm.
And of course, maybe, clear pricing, right? Everyone loves clear pricing. What am I paying for? What am I getting?
Yeah, I mean, scope is very, very important. Yeah, I think scope is very important, outlining what your responsibilities are, what are the responsibilities of the client. And I'd say, that folks uh being clear is the key, because I think sometimes there's expectations that happen on behalf of, look, we have expectations. Some people give us expectations that if we do a tax return, that we're going to audit the financial statements and we're going to look through every single expense. Is that a reality? No, we're not hired to audit your financial statements. That's a very different expectation, right? And so I think those clear expectations are important. And I find oftentimes in the cannabis industry, we have folks that are, kind of used to what the types of services that we would provide, and they know what to expect. And then there's folks in the industry that kind of expect that when you pay for a service that you're going to get all, everything's going to be included. It's like, well, no, because um, services can encompass so many different things. So I'd say, that those clear definitions and scope is really, really important. I know for us, we as a financial services firm get scope creep all the time, So for example, somebody will ask us to do accounting. And then it becomes, well, now our investors need financials, and now we need to do business plans, and now we need to, and I'm like, wait, we're doing accounting. We're doing your month-end accounting. This is what this means. And sometimes it takes a little bit of education, right? And so you as service providers out there as well, and or product providers, looking at what are you actually providing for people, and being clear on that is key.
And Kathleen, I just saw your follow-up really quick. Um, if it's past due diligence, maybe, you call this a loss. I know that, I've been burned a couple times too.
Mhm.
And I say to myself, you got to go through some stuff to learn some stuff. So again, I'm fortunate, but hopefully working, just communicating with that provider.
Hopefully there's a way to, I would hope they would want to, on the other side, they would want to at least find a middle and just see where they also kind of, where that loss of communication was from the person providing the service. But we'll keep going. So we'll go back over to Rachel. So this one, and I know we kind of touched in on it a little bit, but for women negotiating compensation, ownership, or leadership roles, what financial or structural elements should they be paying attention to that often get missed in contracts or partnerships?
Oh boy, where do you start? Um, this is a big topic. In cannabis, I'd say that if something is even written up in an agreement, I'm shocked half the times, right? Uh, Oftentimes I see folks getting into partnerships, joint ventures, even acquiring storefronts and licenses without even in receiving an LOI, you know, a letter of intent. So the amount of handshake deals that are still happening with very sophisticated and larger entrepreneurs is astounding to me. I'd say whenever you're getting into some type of agreement with somebody, always start with, if things could go wrong, they may not, but plan for things going wrong. And I have agreements even with some friends that work with me, work in my company. I've had family members working in my company. It doesn't matter. We're going to paper everything up. We're going to think about, well, what if you don't want to be here anymore? Or just plan for the worst. And that's how you do your agreements with that in mind.
Get it in writing.
And talk through it, have an open dialogue. I figure if you're gonna work with somebody or have some type of agreement, always have an open communication. And then me as a leader, who's signing most of these agreements, or somebody signing them with my company, I tell them, hey, if I'm doing something, let me know. Let me know. I just had a conversation like that this morning. Like I have blind spots too, and I want to be open to that. So I can't be defensive. I think once we've been in business long enough, we realize sometimes I'm wrong too, right? And so I want to have that open communication and be able to see my own blind spots as well. Yeah.
Wanted to give it a moment. Does anybody else have a question that they might want to ask to each of our speakers, or both of them? Feel free to unmute or put it in the chat.
Dealing with tax season. As a bookkeeper, I want to kill everyone, and swear words are just coming out of my mouth. So happy to ask you.
Who was that? I can't see it.
Gina. It was Gina.
Hey, Gina, how are you?
And I hand over the P&Ls to CPAs. So I do all the hard work. I call it, you do the easy work. I hand you the answers.
We were just talking about tax season as we were prepping for the call. So Rachel said it best. It's a good thing there's extensions. But yeah, we're staying pretty busy nowadays.
I'd say also, when I have my plate I'm overwhelmed, and I know we're going to get into one of these topics in a minute, but like I'm not delegating. There's so many things to like keeping ourselves sane and not stressed out. Some days I'm better at it than others. Also, some of this is look at the kind of clients you're taking on, client acceptance. So if they're not following the rules of what it's going to take for you to be successful for them, then it might not be a good engagement, right? And so if they're waiting till the midnight hour to give you stuff, then they might not be good for you, and they might not be worth it at the end of the day. And sometimes it's a little bit of training your client and client acceptance. I think that's really, really important. As women entrepreneurs, manage our own frustration, manage our own world, which is also like balancing as well. And I know when I don't have time to do the things that improve my life, getting outside, doing yoga, whatever you like to do, spending quality time with people that you love, working with people you actually want to work with, clients that you actually want to work with. We spend more time saying no than we do saying yes. And some people get frustrated with that with us. But I want my quality of life to be good. I want our team's quality of life to be good. And I think that is way more important than accepting a client. I have 2 clients right now I'm probably going to be disengaging with. They're probably 2 of our biggest clients, but it's not worth it for us. It's not worth it for my team. I'm not losing my team over that. So I'd say, I could go on and on and on. I'm going to be quiet.
I think you hit it on the head though, Rachel. And that to me is one of the core things of really understanding your business right on the front end. Who's your ideal client? What does a successful engagement look like? What does a successful, tax season look like in my case? and sort of understanding it before you even start. Set the expectation, right on the front end as best we can, right? We have to pivot and things happen and all that good stuff. But to the best that you can plan for it, the better off I think we all are generally as we kind of go through the motions of the work and our busy seasons, our highs and lows, and managing clients, certainly.
As you both
If
are
we
saying,
need to take downtime too. It's like if we're short circuiting and it's like, okay, I can't take anymore, then maybe it's time to take a day. Because then I'm not going to say something I'm going to regret. Sometimes I do say things I regret though. I have to go back and say, hey, apologize or whatever. But
we're all human.
I think I'm doing that less and less nowadays though. So that's a good sign.
Yeah. As you were saying, like, not all clients are good clients. Same thing for business owners out there that are raising money. Not all investor money is good money. All of that. We have to look at it from all levels. Not the right client, not the right investors, all these things when we're building our businesses, you can say no. And sometimes, even though, like Rachel, you were just saying that you might be letting go one of your biggest clients. Yes, that is a big client. They bring a lot to the table in some ways, but the headache is college. I don't know if someone was speaking. Did somebody have a question? No? Okay. Okay. Well, we have two more, and then we are going to move into our group photo, our virtual photo, and then we're going to bring in our business member of the month. So we'll get to these last two questions. Jessica, from your experience advising businesses across all these different industries, what have you seen separates companies that scale sustainably from those that constantly feel financially stretched?
My goal is to break that record. I think we need to mute.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So there you go.
The most successful businesses and entrepreneurs and just people that I would say are doing it really well are generally planning. They're planning for sustainable growth. They're not really reactive to growth. They're not just growing just to grow. They're growing very strategically. They understand, again, what the costs are and when those outflows need to happen. They understand when the inflows are going to happen so that they're planning accordingly for that strategic growth. And they're, again, generally financially disciplined. I go back to like, they know their numbers. These are the folks that know their numbers, and they're not just saying it again verbatim because the CPA told them. They're saying it with confidence. They understand the inputs. They understand what adding, two more clients is going to do to both their top line and their bottom line. They understand what expanding into 3 different product lines means. And so in my experience, these are the most successful businesses. And let me not forget to add, they know where they're going. They know their exit. They're generally pretty clear about how long, how they're going to do it, what they're looking for in order to achieve it. So these are folks that are in the strategy. And I know as entrepreneurs, that is incredibly difficult at times, right? Because we wear many hats. We're also the doers, besides the strategists, right? We're the doers, we're the salespeople, we're the marketing folks. So it's important to really carve out that strategy time. And I see this often. We're just running 1,000 miles an hour. There's no time for strategy. If there's no time for strategy, I don't think the end is going to happen as you think it's going to happen. You will get ridden by the wave. You're not going to ride it. It's going to take you.
That's wise. I'll add a little bit to that. And I'd say also being flexible, especially in the cannabis industry. So yeah, absolutely strategize. And then we also may need to pivot a little bit and because things are always changing. Things are changing in the world but especially in the cannabis industry. And so we strategize and, set the game plan for where we're going. And then if something changes, then we need to be able to be nimble and be able to pivot as well. So I know, for me and my company, we've grown quite a lot over the last number of years, which is something to be said in the cannabis industry to be thriving. And, I take a look at things every year, but also every quarter, keep my ear to the ground. And then we just make slight pivots, just be nimble. And I think that that's also really important. Mm-hmm.
The pivot requires re-strategy, right, Rachel? It's
Totally.
here's the
Totally.
thing in the
Right.
road. Got to re-strategize. Where does it
Yeah.
fit now?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I think laying down strategy doesn't mean, we could say this is a 3-year plan, 5-year, 10-year. 10-year is who knows what's going to happen in 10 years. But, within that year, if something drastically changes or something, then we need to have that time, have that space to be able to Jessica's point, strategize. We, instead of being doers all the time, thinking, keeping our ears to the ground, really watching what's going on, listening to people. That's about it. But nimble is very important.
Well, I think we'll end on this last question from actually Josephine. We'll go back to you, Rachel, and then Jessica, if you have any words to it as well. But Josephine asks, what are your thoughts on and kind of similar to what you might have just been saying, what are your thoughts on the ramp up time to plan for an exit?
Oh, is that for me? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, sorry. Yeah, we'll go.
Okay. Well, it depends. It depends on what the exit looks like.
Yeah.
Our classic answer is it depends. So, yeah, I mean, it depends on if you want to sell your business, you want to get, a certain amount of valuation, and then you want to sell it at a given time. If it's the shorter period of time that it is, the more tight your plan needs to be, and the more you need to be watching and diligent, I would say. Sometimes it's a partial exit plan. Sometimes it's a merger. If it's a merger, then you may, be required to stay on staff for a while and help the transition team. Do you actually want to do that? So there's so many different things to take into consideration. It depends on what that exit plan is and how close you are.
Yeah, I would agree with everything you just said. It really does depend. This is different for every entrepreneur, every business. Generally speaking, a business will have a life cycle, right? And that could be 5 years, 10 years, 100 years, right? So whatever that is. But generally, I do recommend that entrepreneurs and owners start thinking at least 3 years before, let's call it their target exit date. Right? So if they have a date in mind, 3 years before that, you really need to get financials in order, at least understand what your baseline valuation is right at that time, right? And then if you have a number in mind, let's say, then the plan is in the next 3 years, how do I achieve that number? What do I need to do today and in the next 3 years to hit that, or as close to it as possible? Again, things change, right? We may not always get there. Some things are really truly outside of our control, as we all know in cannabis. But to the extent that you can control it, to the extent that you're in your driver's seat, I would encourage entrepreneurs and owners to really start kind of honing it in. Don't be surprised if someone does give you an LOI, as Rachel mentioned. You should be ready for that. You should understand the offer that's coming to you. What does that mean? Where is it in your plan? Where is it in the big picture against the competitors, against the industry, those kind of things?
Yeah. And then is it going to be enough for you for your end game, right? So,
Right.
money goes quickly nowadays. So there's a lot of bright, shiny objects. And if you get an LOI, obviously you want to make sure you have your attorney and you have your accountant, your CPA right then and there. Because as soon as you get that LOI, we're going to be looking at what kind of exit is it? How are you going to be paid? What Is it an asset purchase, a stock purchase, all of those types of things. And we need to be ready to make sure you pay as little on taxes as possible. And just because something's on an LOI doesn't, that's the beginning of the negotiations, right? So I look at the LOI and I say, no, this is not going to be good for you. And if we can frame it in a way that's good also for the acquirer and make it sound like it's a good idea for them too, or make it a win-win, that would be great. It's not always that way, but make the case for why it would also be good for them. But also, this is kind of where it comes into play with knowing your value and knowing what what you're worth. So, because that's the beginning. That's kind of usually how they hook you, is in the beginning LOI, right? And then you start getting talked down as deal fatigue starts setting in from there. So watch for that.
Your points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank both of you for joining us. Again, I know it's busy season. We're hopeful the start of this conversation was very valuable for everybody tuning in. If you both could put where people can connect with you or your team to further conversations, if there was any question that they would like to ask you both personally. And while we're doing that, I am going to get us ready for our group photo, and then we are going to bring up our business member spotlight. And let me get me off screen. All right, we got everybody on. So if everyone who wants to be in the photo can take their camera or turn their camera on for just a moment. I'll give it a second. You good? One more second. Anyone else want to turn their camera on for our group photo? I see some turning on. There we go. There we go. There we go. Awesome. Okay, perfect. You guys can connect with Rachel and Jessica both in the chat. They left their information. And now we're going to hear from our business member of the month. We have Bridget in the house. So I'm going to bring her up really quickly. Hi, Bridget.
Hi.
So this month we wanted to recognize Bridget Pinder, a Minnesota cannabis entrepreneur, activist, and powerful communicator builder whose work spans more than 2 decades. Bridget's advocacy has always been rooted in legalization, equity, and advancing women's leadership within the industry. Bridget is actually the founder of Grounded Gardens. She has built a women-owned business grounded in sustainability, stewardship, and long-term community investment, which is, again, a true reflection of her values. She's also the visionary behind Ganja Gals, where she actually creates intentional spaces for women to connect, learn, and build community through cannabis-centered events.
Love that.
Across Minnesota and beyond, Bridget has played a meaningful role in advancing legalization efforts. And above all, she is a wife, a mother of 2 boys, and a leader committed to creating opportunity, fostering connection, and leaving a lasting impact. Welcome, Bridget. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you.
Feel free to share a little bit more about that, and then we have one question for you today after that.
Okay. Yeah, we are just currently licensed here in Minnesota. So we have a micro license. So what we've got going is our dispensary, our consumption lounge, and our manufacturing. We'll start our grow in May. We'll start with outdoor. We're fighting with our county right now to get our greenhouses and such up. So yeah, super exciting. Brand new market here. We were, I think, I don't know, one of the 20 or something to start. And we are selling product from the tribes. So that's how Minnesota is working right now is everything that we have comes from the tribes. There's a few people that have started getting stuff out. So one of my good friends just got some vapes out. So that's exciting to start to see our craft market starting. And yeah, we built a little different bit of a licensing style. So I'm super excited to see how it kind of works out here. And hopefully we can keep some of the big MSOs out. I know that's a hard thing, but to keep a little bit of that out and do the small craft. So we were really instrumental in starting the hemp derived drinks and things like that up here in Minnesota. And so that's been exciting to watch, and now transferring into the legal market, super exciting. So thanks for having me.
I've been a fan and a colleague and friend. I feel like, since what, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yep.
And just finally seeing, I remember when you posted that you got the license, and I knew it was going to be, you were saying it's going to be a time, before you get to opening, but now seeing all that you've done, it's really inspiring, and exciting. But with that, and I know there's going to be lots of lessons, but as you navigated securing your dispensary license in Minnesota, what is one lesson you learned, either strategically or personally, that you wish more women understood before starting the process?
Getting involved, I think, is the biggest part. This industry is tough, as we know. It's a man-driven industry, and I've had more people come into my store and ask me, "Who's the man that runs the place?" Right? Which is like, oh. But yeah, I think the main thing I tell people is to get involved in community. Community is the most important thing that we can build. And listening to the women before, being the volunteers and being the people that give everything back and doing things for free. I think it's a hard space to kind of walk in, because you know I want to help, but at the same time I'm learning, oh, but I need to make money, right? So it's trying to build that community and walk that line, but also trying to find the line of how do I make money doing this stuff and run my business and still help and give back, but not at my own fault, right? Or at my own detriment. So I think that's um, and it's hard. I've had a lot of business partners. I've had a lot of different things go on. I'll never take on another business partner in my life. I just, it's a tough space. And, we were talking about due diligence and things like that. And it's hard when everybody's brand new, especially in like Minnesota, we're all brand new. So it's been hard to kind of figure out who to go with. And, but yeah, just getting involved, I think, is the main thing.
I love that. And yeah, and again, I think that is one of the hardest lessons to learn. And I think it always can go back to your mission and your why, and just what aligns. Listen to the gut. We know our own gut of what's telling us. And just sometimes we'll make mistakes in saying yes to certain things. But again, thank you for being a business member with Blunt Brunch, and again for all that you do, and for coming out to New York at our last event.
That was
Um,
fun.
yeah, so again, thank you for your time. Feel free to put how people can connect with you, especially if they're going to Minnesota. If anybody's going to NECAN, maybe they can make their way out to your location during their stay. But thank you again for being here. All right. You'll see our next calendar invite. We're going to keep the conversation. This one will be more of a legal conversation around contracts, and still kind of the money conversation. We're going to have two IMA financial and then a lawyer joining us in 2 weeks. So stay tuned for the invite. And again, thank you all, and we will see you next time.
Thank you to you, Adelia. Great job.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Yes.
Thanks.
Yep.
Take
Thank
care.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.